This is the farmhouse where I grew up, where my father grew up, where my grandfather grew up, where my great-grandfather grew up. The main house was built in 1860. We got electricity in 1943 with the Rural Electrification Act. And now what I am doing is I'm removing the majority of the 1960 updates and reverting the era back to somewhere between 1920 and 1950. I'm going to show you each room in the order that I did them years ago. While I am no more of a carpenter or a designer than any member of my family has ever been, I'm doing it to suit me and my tastes. Back when we first started the upgrades to the house, in the kitchen, under the picture window, there was a desk. Well, when we started working on the kitchen, we had to get that desk out of there, so we put it in a corner of the living room, and that corner didn't have a receptacle, so we had to, as you can see, we had to cut a section of the wall away because the walls are solid, and go down into the cellar and get a power lead. And at the same time, we ran a extension phone line so that we could plug in our cordless phone. But then when we were working on the electric in the living room, we decided we didn't like the style with the chrome faceplates. So we decided to go 40s, and that meant everything had to be changed to dark brown. So this is how we took vintage Bakelite Bryant electric brown faceplates and converted them to the modern style switches that we were going to use in the living room. So we started by purchasing a brown phone jack, and then we bought an F connector so that we could get the connector out of the plastic piece there. As you can see, we've got it out, and then we drilled a hole in that faceplate so that we could install the connector. And that connector is for our TV. We're an over-the-air service. So with that connector screwed into the faceplate, you can take the TV antenna and plug it in the back, and then in the front, you can plug another one in and run it to the TV. Now this is our Bryant faceplate that has been converted to Decora, and you can see what it originally looked like. And here is how we cut it out. We took one of the stainless plates and used that as a template, and then we simply used a Dremel and a cutoff wheel, and you cut it out. You do have to wear a good mask. We used a paint fume mask because that Bakelite dust is toxic. And when you get it all cut, it should mount right up as you see. On the left is what you saw us build. On the right is vintage brown early Decora. And over by the kitchen door, we had the original 3-place switch. Well, that had to get converted to the Despard style switch of the 40s. The Despard switches, you can buy reproductions, which is what we did, from Kyle's switch plates. We purchased the 3 switches and the accompanying mounting plate, and you just pop the switches into that mounting plate. The thing about the Despards, you can have any combination of anything you want. You can have receptacles, you can have indicator lights, you can have one-way switches, 3-way switches, 4-way switches. They really were quite a universal type of switch back in the day. So we just pulled the old rockers out of there, put these reproductions in, and then using an original Bryant Despard 3-place switch plate, we mounted that on the wall as you see. And the reason why we used Bryant is back in the mudroom, there was one switch that was original, and that happened to have a switch plate that eventually we learned it was a Bryant from the 40s, and we decided to carry that into the living room. And then finally, the last bit of wiring trickery, we had to get the battery-backed power to our heater in the living room. So we drilled a hole through the wall, and you can see the power cable, and then we just mounted it externally, as you can see, and labeled it. And what's coming out of the top is the power indicator wire for our little gauge, and what that does is it shows us how much battery power is in the batteries when the power is out and we are running on the backup batteries. And that is how we did the advanced wiring in the living room.